This is presumably going to be somewhat controversial, especially if you are from the UK or something. As such, there shall be a ranking of the best and the worst cars from each country. Let us start with the UK.
I think you're a little bitch, actually.
That's fine.
An utter little rude little bitch.
Truly, some of the cars that this country has produced were nothing more than a diabolical disgrace. However, the worst cars produced at the time was the Austin Metro and its myriad of variants, touted by Austin Rover or Leyland, or whatever the bloody hell they were at the time, as a British car to take on the world.
A British car to beat the world.
The Metro was met with raving journalist reviews at the time, which failed to reflect the car's poor reliability, rust-proofing, safety, and so on. Look at the NCAP comparison between the 1997 Metro and the 1997 Ford Fiesta. Both vehicles are involved in an offset collision. The safety sill of the Metro collapses, the windscreen displaces, and the car contorts around the crash barrier. Although the occupants of the vehicle were able to share the airbag, they would have also been crushed to dust. Despite the updated version of the new car receiving a substantial revision, it was still a car that fell well behind its competitors on all fronts, and really was the sort of thing that was something really to die in.
Rover, a class of its own.
The best car to come from the UK was the, wait for it, Range Rover.
Of Range Rover.
Now I understand you're probably going to say, you've just started talking about rust-proofing and poor reliability and all the rest of it, why on earth would you suggest the Range Rover? But that's not what it's about. The Range Rover set a standard. It set a new benchmark. Every Luxo Budge that you drive today, whether that be a Mercedes ML or Lexus RX or Audi Q7, they can all trace their own roots back to the Range Rover.
Coupled with Range Rover's permanent four-wheel drive system, this endows the Range Rover with vast reserves of road holding, enhancing off-road performance and giving superb on-road ride comfort.
It started that luxury off-roader. Before the Range Rover, what did you have? The horrible Willys Jeep and the bloody Land Rover Defender. I mean, do you really want to drive that to the shops? No. And now we have the Range Rover that fills all the voids.
Range Rover. Write your own story.
Now we come to Germany, presumably Britain's largest competitor in the car field, although they ended up winning in the end. But anyway, let's start with the best. The best car Germany ever made, in my opinion, has to be the Mercedes 300 SL. When it was released in 1954, it was this two-door car that you could drive to the supermarket, you could go on long journeys, and yet it was the fastest car in the world, with a 3-litre straight six that was able to drag itself all the way to 263 kilometers an hour. The car was comfortable and easy to live with on a day-to-day basis, and this really was not something that could be said for the Ferraris and Maseratis of the time. Now, I know Germany is touted as a great place for cars, but some of the vehicles that they've produced over the last 20 years have been really shocking. The Mercedes GL immediately comes to mind. I can recall seeing one that was 5 years old, and it already had begun to disintegrate. Inside, everything you touched, everything you saw looked very cheap and trashy. It was as if Mercedes had decided there was a corner that was there and it should be cut.
That not only are we cutting corners, but maybe even forgetting that the corners exist!
This era of Mercedes was truly terrible. From the cost-cutting to the poor design, any car from this period really had the longevity of a Gulag inmate. Speaking of Russia, probably the best car to come from this country was the Marussia B2. This supercar was the company's second attempt at building one. The company drew from their experience in F1 with its Cosworth engines and its pushrod actuated suspension. The vehicle was more than capable of keeping up with the Ferrari or Lotus. Now the bad. The Lada Samara was shocking in every way imaginable. Reviewers at the time spoke of ponderous handling, underpowered engines, and appalling ride quality, whereas owners spoke of a car that disintegrated around them and was plagued with horrific reliability woes. This car was so bad, it was actually shocking. This is a shame, as Lada's offerings in the West have done nothing but drag the brand and subsequently Russia's reputation for building cars into the gutter. Now we arrive in Italy. The country that has given the world brands like Ferrari and Maserati, where cheese is worshipped and people live in 1,000-year-old villages. The best car to come from Italy would be the Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale. This car is truly a work of art. I have never seen a car that is as beautiful nor as captivating as this one.
Ooh, la.
Now, this was not the first supercar with the mid-engine. That crown goes to the Lamborghini Miura. However, as much as I like that car, it really is not in the same league as the Alfa. It's heavier, slower, and really not comparable. The Stradale was bespoke, it was rarer, more exclusive, and as a result, the market value for these vehicles has been estimated in excess of 10 million. Now, you can't say that for a Miura of the time. Now, from that exact same company, 14 years later, comes the joint venture between Nissan and Alfa Romeo that led to the disgrace that was the Alfa whatever it was. Hang on, the Arna. That car was just... I really don't understand why you would have gotten Nissan to do the design and then Alfa Romeo to do the building and the engines. It is beyond me. And it was just such illogical behaviour. And you ended up with a car that had all the charisma and appeal of drinking water from the Ganges River and the looks of canned spam. It's not as if I'm telling tales. This car is consistently described as one of the worst cars ever made, regardless of where you look. Now at France. Parlez-vous français? The answer is no. Anyway, we now look at the best car ever made by France, and that is the Citroën DS. I'm not arguing with you. This car was a technological masterpiece that employed many of the features that we enjoy today. Think of it in similar esteem as the Tesla Model 3 when it came out. The vehicle was the first mass-market car with disc brakes, hydrogeomatic height-adjustable suspension, and the car as a result had a silky smooth ride that is still impressive till this day. The suspension system first pioneered by Citroën is still used in variants today by cars such as the Lexus LX570. Now we come to the country that delivered us that, to this. Now, when I was trying to make a decision at the worst French car ever made, I looked at the Citroën C5, the Renault Velsatis, and even the Alpine 610. However, I settled for the 206. due to it having at the time the lowest scores in all categories when assessing customer satisfaction for a vehicle at the time period. It had the lowest rankings in all factors, from cost, performance, reliability, and even comfort. No car has managed to score at the bottom for every category before or since. This was really a shame, as the previous model, the 205, was a fantastic little car. It was one of the best cars of the era, with class-leading handling, comfort and reliability. The 206 signified the end of that tradition of Peugeot, the end of reliability, and the end of customer satisfaction for the brand. Now, India is not really known for its car building efforts. However, it should be. It has many in-house brands such as Tata, Mahindra, Maruti, to name a few. Now let's start with the bad. The Tata Nano. This is a car that was apparently designed to move India. It was going to provide transport to the masses and lift them away from their scooters and motorbikes. However, the car really didn't do that. It was compromised in every capacity to meet its tiny price tag. It had really poor comfort, reliability.
It's the world's cheapest car that's mysteriously catching fire.
When contacted, the company says there is no design flaw in the Nano. The car has been tested for over 2 million kilometers under all conditions before it was launched, and hence this is just a one-off case. Similar cases were reported in Delhi, Lucknow, Ahmedabad and just 20 days ago in Mumbai.
परिवारजनों ने समस्या साथी कार में आग लगी तो कार में
Poor reliability, poor handling and stability issues. It was prone to rolling over. The car had 0 to 100 in over 30 seconds, and as a result of all of that, it found itself competing with the second-hand market, where it really could not compete. Due to having every corner cut, due to being so cheapened, consumers would have come to the vehicle, they would have test-driven the vehicle, noticed how underpowered and how uncomfortable it was, and then, God, I'm not going to buy this.
Tata Nano, आपके खुशियों की चाबी.
Now, the best car in India, in my opinion, must be the most recognisable. Any Indian film, you will see this car. We always see these taxis driving around. We think, what is that? What is it? It's the Hindustan Ambassador. It is a car that has been on India's roads since the 1950s and is hugely responsible for ferrying around millions of Indians every day. The car came as a result of a joint merger between Morris and Hindustan at the time, and the car is hugely based on the Morris Oxford of the period. Although the technology of the car was very old, and the engines that were used were very much getting long in the tooth, the car was still updated with fresh interiors and even new engines. As the time went on, Hindustan switched from BMC-based designs to Isuzu-based engines, and you can imagine this significantly improved performance, fuel economy, and even reliability. And that's probably why the car had such a long life, due to it being continually updated. Oh, now we're at the land of the rising sun, Japan.
What a surprise. That's the distinct tang of a liar. Right, Giorno Giovanna?
Japan was quite difficult to find the worst car, and it was also difficult to find the best car. I mean, we all know Japan as being the epitome of quality and engineering, but I was able to come to the point. In my opinion, the best car that they've ever made has to be the Lexus LFA. Now I know there's going to be people who are going to say, no it's not, it's the Skyline or the Integra or the Civic or Evo or whatever, but it wasn't. The LFA was not Japan's first supercar, however it was their best. With a screaming V10 and the craftsmanship of 1,000 artisans, and the engineering of Toyota's brightest, the vehicle was nothing short of spectacular. You can just listen to the scream and the carry-on, and it's just an unbelievable engine. Now the bad. Now, I'm sure you know the Japanese at times are a bit bizarre.
So, just how are we gonna have more fun in the 90s? Introducing the new 4x4 X90 from Suzuki.
The X90. This is quite possibly one of the ugliest cars that has ever been made. Now, I'm truly at awe. An executive at Suzuki was at a meeting at the concepts for the car and said, yeah, that looks really good, people will buy it, let's put it in production. And I'm truly at awe if this person was an alcoholic or they were just flat out demented. The vehicle had the ride and road holding of a Spanish bull and the off-road potential of a pogo stick and all the allure and grace of a genital wart. I mean, there really is no plus to this car. Inside you were greeted with a sea of grey plastic, tight seating for two, and microscopic cargo space. The car spanned just from 1995 to 1997. With less than 2,000 total car sales, it really was a commercial flop. Now to the United States.
Chime bells ring and yodel-oo-dee. My heart is singing doodle-oo.
Let me have his inheritance.
No.
Okay.
Due to the sheer volume of cars produced, it's very difficult to pick and choose which cars were the worst and the best. However, I have come to a conclusion. The worst vehicle to ever come from the United States was the Ford Pinto.
Meet the Pinto. Just born. Ford's Pinto is priced like a small economy import, but it's frisky.
It came out in the 1970s and really was a small car created in response to the oil crisis of the period.
It's averaged over 25 miles a gallon in simulated city and suburban driving.
The car was incredibly poorly designed,
A wider stance than any economy import.
cheaply made and unsafe. It is here because it is a car that was involved in a rear-end collision and it subsequently caught fire. The fuel tank would break open and it would go on the hot exhaust, and of course there would be a fire very, very quickly and everyone would be dead.
We wouldn't steer you wrong.
I mean, the accountants had decided, you know, if we recall the cars, it's going to cost this much. However, if we keep it in production and we continue producing it and selling it, these are going to be the cost of the insurance payouts, and the insurance payouts were less money, so the cars were never recalled, and as a result, really a huge amount of people involved in rear-end collisions burned alive.
When we say Pinto is quality built and import priced, we're not horsing around.
The best car, I think, to come from the United States has to be really the Dodge Viper.
It is the Dodge Viper. Seductive. Irresistible.
Now, I know it wasn't really a great car when it came out. It had a bloody 8-litre V10 with just 400 horsepower. That's 50 horsepower per litre.
And here it is.
However, it came out, and when it did, it showed the world that the United States could produce something that was honest and that had a single purpose. Generally, the Americans, I feel, are really big on producing cars that they think can do everything. When they create a sports car, they want it to be really good at cruising along, then they want it to handle really well, then they want it to go very fast, and you end up with this horrible, sort of a disgusting brown mix and match of everything. You can't do that. You have to focus on one or the other. And that's what the Dodge Viper did. It was a supercar really at the time from the United States, and it wasn't trying to be anything. It wasn't trying to pretend to be a Ferrari.
V10 engineering. More horsepower than a Ferrari 348.
Was itself. And that is, there's nothing more important, I think, on someone or something being itself.